I need advice because I genuinely don't know what to do. My 24F boyfriend Nate, 27M, disappeared overnight, like literally took everything, blocked me everywhere, and left without a single word. And I think I know why, but I don't understand why he's acting this extreme. We've been together for 3 years. Nate is an accountant, stable, responsible, never late for anything. I'm a massage therapist and work odd hours, but we always made time for each other. Or so I thought. Yesterday, I woke up and he was just gone. His clothes, his laptop, his gaming console, even his damn coffee mug. At first I thought maybe we got robbed, but nothing of mine was missing. Then I checked my phone. Blocked. On everything. WhatsApp, Instagram, even Venmo. Who blocked someone on Venmo? I freaked out, called his sister. She picked up, sighed, and said, "Serena, don't," and then hung up. What does that even mean? I started spiraling, thinking about everything that could have happened. Did he get into an accident? Was there an emergency? But he would have told me, right? Then it hit me. He must have found out about that one night. But how? I was careful. I swear, I was so careful. I swear, my hands were shaking. I paced the apartment, checking every single room like maybe he left a note or something. Nothing. Just empty spaces where his things used to be. His side of the closet? Bare. His toiletries? Gone. Even his toothbrush. Who takes their toothbrush when they're mad? I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, trying to process. The only thing that made sense was that Nate somehow found out I cheated. But how? It was just once. A dumb, meaningless mistake. It didn't even mean anything. And I made sure no one saw us. It was his boss, which, yeah, maybe that makes it worse. But it wasn't like I planned it. We were at a work party. Nate had already left, and one thing led to another. I didn't think it mattered, because Nate was never supposed to find out. But now this? Just packing up and leaving like I never existed? No fight? No confrontation? Just gone? I tried calling his mom. Straight to voicemail. His best friend? Blocked there too. That's when it hit me. He planned this. Nate knew. And he didn't just leave, he erased me. My chest felt tight. I was panicking. This wasn't a breakup. This was a full-on disappearance. Who does that? Even if he was mad, even if he found out about that night, how could he just leave without even yelling at me? Without asking questions? I needed answers. Now. I grabbed my car keys and drove straight to his office. I didn't even think about what I was going to say. I just needed to see him, to talk to him, to explain. Because this was insane. But when I got there, Nate wasn't there. He doesn't work here anymore, the receptionist said, barely looking up from her screen. I just blinked at her. What? She sighed like I was annoying her. He resigned last week. My stomach dropped. Last week. I felt like I was going to throw up. That meant he didn't just leave in a rush after finding out. He had been planning this. Days. Maybe even weeks. I stumbled outside, my mind racing. Where did he go? Where is he staying? How long has he known? And then a horrifying thought hit me. Did his boss tell him? I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers went numb. He resigned? A week ago? That meant this wasn't some knee-jerk reaction. He knew. He knew, and had been planning his escape from me. My heart was pounding, and my mind was spinning in circles. How did he find out? I was so careful. It was one night, one stupid mistake. No texts, no calls, no weird behavior, nothing that should have tipped him off. Unless, his boss. My stomach turned. That was the only way. I never even thought about that possibility. Did he tell Nate? Why? What would even be the point? The whole reason I went along with it was because I thought it wouldn't change anything. Nate was never supposed to find out, so why ruin everything? I needed answers. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Mr. Reynolds. I hesitated for a second. What was I even going to say? But my thumb pressed call before I could think about it too much. It rang twice before he picked up. Serena, he said, sounding nervous. My heart sank. He knew something. Did you tell Nate? I blurted out, my voice shaking. A long pause. Then, finally, he sighed. I think you should move on, Serena. Move on? Move on. My hands were shaking now. So you did, I said, my throat dry. You told him? He didn't answer right away. It wasn't exactly like that, he muttered. Look, I don't want to be involved in this mess. I suggest you respect Nate's decision. I wanted to scream. He was dodging the question, which meant it was true. You had no right. He cut me off. You need to accept that Nate is gone. Then he hung up. I stared at my phone, my mind racing. That coward. What did he even say to Nate? Did he tell him everything, or did he twist it to make me look even worse? But none of that mattered anymore. Nate was gone, and he didn't even give me a chance to fix it. I don't even remember driving home. My head was spinning, my vision blurry, and my whole body felt like it was burning up. I kept replaying the call in my head over and over. It wasn't exactly like that. What did that even mean? What did he tell Nate? How much did he know? I parked in front of my building, but I didn't get out. I just sat there, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. This didn't make sense. If Nate had found out from his boss, why wouldn't he say something? Why would he just leave? Wouldn't he at least scream at me? Call me names? Demand an explanation? But no. Nothing. Just silence. Like I never existed to him. I couldn't take it. I needed to see him. I scrolled through my contacts again. I couldn't call him. Blocked. I couldn't text him. Blocked. I couldn't even DM him on Instagram. Blocked. But he couldn't have blocked me everywhere. There had to be some way. Then I remembered his sister. Her. She was the only person who had picked up earlier, even if she just told me don't and hung up. But now that I knew Nate had been planning this for a week, I realized something. She knew. I took a deep breath and called her again. Ring. 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 Click. Serena, I told you. Kara, please, I begged before she could hang up. I just need to know where he is. Just tell me that, and I'll leave you alone. She sighed, and I could already hear the irritation in her voice. He doesn't want to see you? I get that. I lied. I didn't get that. Not at all. But I deserve to talk to him. At least once. Just to explain. Kara let out a bitter laugh. Explain? Explain what, Serena? That it was just a mistake? That it didn't mean anything? My stomach twisted. She knew. I swallowed hard. So, he told you? He didn't have to, she snapped. I saw what you did to him. I saw him sitting in my living room at 3 a.m., staring at the floor like his entire world had just collapsed. And you know what the worst part is? He didn't even cry. He just sat there, silent. No, completely shut down. You broke him, Serena. My throat tightened. I didn't want that. I never wanted that. Kara, please, I whispered, feeling the tears come. I didn't mean for this to happen. She scoffed. That's the problem, isn't it? You never meant for it to happen, but it did. And now you have to live with the consequences. I wiped my eyes furiously. Just tell me where he is. No. Kara. No, Serena, she snapped. He's finally trying to move on, and I'm not going to let you drag him back into this. You don't get to decide when and how you talk to him. You lost that right the second you chose to cheat. My whole body went cold. She was right. I lost that right, but I still couldn't accept it. Kara, if you don't tell me, I'll find him myself. It came out harsher than I meant it to, but I didn't care. I couldn't let this be the end. She was quiet for a moment. Then she let out a slow breath. You really don't get it, do you? Get what? Nate isn't just avoiding you, she said, her voice softer now. He's gone? I frowned. What do you mean gone? She hesitated. And then she said the words that made my blood turn to ice. Nate moved out of state. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. You're lying. I wish I was. I shook my head, gripping my phone tighter. No. That doesn't make sense. His job. He quit. His apartment. Lease was up. He didn't renew it. My breath came out in short gasps. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. He wouldn't just leave everything behind. But he did. And it was all because of me. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I felt dizzy. Sick. I wanted to scream, cry, throw something, anything. But Kara wasn't done. "Let me give you some advice," she said, her voice firm. "Forget about him. Move on. Because he's not coming back." And then she hung up. I stared at my phone, my whole body numb. Nate was gone. Not just ignoring me. Not just blocking me. He left. He ran away from me. And I had no idea if I'd ever see him again. I don't remember much after that. I think I just sat in my car for a long time, staring at nothing, replaying Kara's words in my head. Nate moved out of state. I kept shaking my head like that would somehow make it untrue. He wouldn't do that. Not Nate. Not the guy who made spreadsheets for our grocery shopping. The guy who planned every little thing in advance. He wasn't impulsive, he was steady. Reliable. Predictable. He wouldn't just vanish. Unless this hurt him that much. I felt sick. When I finally got out of the car, my legs were shaking. I made it up to my apartment, slammed the door shut, and just collapsed. Right there on the floor. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I knew he'd be mad if he ever found out, sure, but this wasn't how people reacted to a mistake. People fought when things like this happened. They yelled, they cried, they tried to fix things. But Nate? He didn't even give me the chance. He just erased me. And the worst part? I didn't even get to say I was sorry. I curled up on the floor, hugging my knees, my brain refusing to shut off. The more I thought about it, the worse it got. Did he hate me now? Did he think I never loved him? Did he ever love me? No. No, I knew the answer to that last one. Nate loved me. That's what made this so much worse. I started going through my phone, desperate for anything. Anything. Maybe an old text, a picture, a voicemail, something that would make this feel less permanent. And then I remembered. His email. He wouldn't have blocked me on email. I sat up so fast my head spun. My fingers flew across the screen as I opened my Gmail app. I typed out a message in seconds. Subject: "Please just talk to me. Nate." I don't know what to say. I don't even know where to start. But please just let me explain. I know I hurt you. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But you leaving like this, without a word, without even letting me talk to you, it's killing me. Please. Just one conversation. That's all I'm asking for. Serena. I hit send before I could overthink it. And then I waited. And waited. And waited. Hours passed. The sun went down. I sat there in the dark, staring at my phone, willing it to light up with a reply. But it never did. Just before midnight, I checked my sent folder again. The email was still there unread. Then I tried something else. I clicked his profile. This email address does not exist. I felt my whole body go cold. He deleted his email. Not just blocked me. Deleted it. He really was gone. I dropped my phone, my chest tightening. This was worse than I thought. He wasn't just cutting me off. He was making sure I could never reach him again. That's when I started to panic. What if I never saw him again? What if this was it? What if I never got to fix this? I stumbled to my feet, my vision blurring. My breath came out in short, ragged gasps. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I couldn't let this happen. I wouldn't let this happen. If Nate wasn't going to give me answers, I'd just have to find them myself. And I knew exactly where to start. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Nate packing up his things, walking out of our apartment, getting into his car, and driving away like I never even mattered. I kept telling myself this wasn't over. It couldn't be over. People break up all the time and get back together. They fight, they scream, they cry, they don't just disappear. But Nate did. And I was going to find him. By the time the sun came up, I had a plan. If Nate wasn't talking to me, I'd go to the only people who might know where he was. His family. I got dressed as fast as I could, barely even brushing my hair, and drove straight to his parents' house. The whole way there, I kept practicing what I'd say. Just let me talk to him. Please, I love him. I'll do anything to fix this. By the time I pulled into their driveway, my hands were shaking. I gripped the steering wheel, took a deep breath, and got out. I knocked on the door. Nothing. I knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. I frowned. They had to be home. Nate's parents were both retired. They barely ever went anywhere. I knocked again, about to call out, when the door finally swung open. His mom stood there, and the look on her face made my stomach drop. It wasn't just anger. It was disappointment, sadness. Like she couldn't even stand to look at me. "Serena," she said, her voice cold. I swallowed hard. "Hi, Mrs. Matthews." I just wanted to talk." She stared at me for a long moment, then sighed and stepped onto the porch, pulling the door shut behind her. She didn't even invite me inside. That's when I knew. They were all against me. "Nate's gone," she said, crossing her arms. I nodded quickly. "I know. That's why I'm here. Please, I just need to talk to him. I don't even know where he is. Can you just—" She cut me off with a sharp glare. "Serena, do you even understand what you've done?" I flinched. "I didn't mean to hurt him." "But you did." Her voice was firm. "You didn't just break his heart. You shattered him. My son, my sweet, loyal son, spent 3 years building a life with you, thinking you loved him, thinking you were his future. And you threw it all away for what? A night with his boss." I swallowed, my eyes burning. "It was a mistake," she scoffed. "A mistake is forgetting to take the trash out. What you did was a choice." I had no words. What was I supposed to say to that? I looked at her, silently begging. "Please, just tell me where he is." She shook her head. "No." "Why?" My voice cracked. "Why won't anyone just let me talk to him?" She sighed, like she was tired of me already. "Because Nate asked us not to." My whole body froze. "What?" "He told us, if Serena comes looking for me, don't tell her anything. Don't let her find me. She's not a part of my life anymore." It felt like a punch to the gut. I staggered back a step. He really said that?" She nodded, her eyes softening just a little. "Serena, he loved you. So much. And that's why this hurt him more than anything. He's not coming back. He's done. And if you care about him, you'll let him go." I shook my head. No, I couldn't accept that. I refused to believe Nate was just gone. But then she reached for the door handle, pausing for just a second. "Please don't come here again." And then she shut the door in my face. I stood there, frozen, my heart hammering. Nate was serious. He didn't want to be found. He didn't want to talk. He didn't even want his own family to tell me where he was. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt actual fear. Because this wasn't just a breakup. This was Nate erasing me from his life. And I didn't know if I could stop it. I don't even remember driving home. My mind was racing, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles were white. He's not coming back. He's done. If you care about him, you'll let him go. I couldn't accept that. How could I? You don't just spend 3 years with someone, build a life together, and then vanish. People don't do that. Not over one mistake. Right? By the time I reached my apartment, my whole body felt numb. I barely even locked the door behind me before I collapsed onto the couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. Nate was gone. His family wasn't going to help me. His friends had all taken his side. He had blocked me from everything. I was running out of options. But I wasn't giving up. Not yet. I grabbed my phone and opened Facebook. Nate didn't use it much, but his sister did. I clicked on Kara's profile, scrolling through her posts, looking for any clue, any sign of where Nate might have gone. Nothing. Her posts were just normal, everyday stuff. Pictures of her dog, memes, random status updates. But then, as I scrolled further down, something caught my eye. A picture. posted 4 days ago. It was just a simple shot of the sky, a sunset over a row of houses. But the caption underneath made my heart stop. Visiting my favorite person in my favorite place? My breath caught. Could she be talking about Nate? I clicked on the picture, zooming in, trying to recognize anything. The houses in the background, they looked familiar. Then it hit me. Kara's grandparents' house. I remembered Nate mentioning it once. Some small town a few states over. He used to spend summers there as a kid. He always said it was the one place that felt peaceful. Was that where he went? It was a long shot. A desperate shot. But it was the only lead I had. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding as I made my decision. I was going to find him, even if it was the last thing I did. I didn't even hesitate. As soon as I connected the dots, I was already packing a bag. I didn't care if it made me look desperate, crazy, obsessive. I needed to see Nate. I threw some clothes into a duffel, grabbed my charger, and booked a hotel in that small town before I could second-guess myself. It was a 5-hour drive. Not too bad. I could get there by evening, find him, and finally talk to him. Because that's all I needed. Just one conversation. One chance to explain, to apologize, to tell him that what we had was worth saving. As I pulled out of the parking lot, my hands were shaking. I told myself I wasn't nervous. I told myself Nate would listen. That once he saw me, he'd have to talk. But a small, ugly voice in the back of my head kept whispering. What if he slams the door in your face? What if he refuses to look at you? What if this only pushes him further away? I clenched my jaw and pushed the thoughts away. I wasn't turning back. The drive. The whole way there. My mind wouldn't shut off. Every time I stopped at a light, I refreshed Kara's Facebook, praying she'd post another hint about Nate's location. Nothing. I kept replaying every detail in my head. How did this even happen? How did we go from happy, planning a future together to this? 3 years. 3 years. All gone because of one mistake. I started making excuses in my head. It wasn't like I was some serial cheater. It wasn't like I wanted to hurt him. It was one night. A drunk, stupid night. Did that really outweigh everything else? The love we shared? The way I was always there for him? The years we spent together? Was I really such a terrible person that I didn't even deserve a chance to make it right? I gripped the steering wheel tighter. No, I wouldn't accept that. Arriving in town. By the time I reached the town, the sun was setting. The place was tiny. One main road, a few restaurants, a gas station, and a motel. I checked into my hotel, barely even listening to the receptionist as she handed me my key. My mind was already 10 steps ahead. Where do I start? I could try Kara's grandparents' house first. But what if they slammed the door in my face? Maybe the local diner. If Nate had been here for a few days, he probably ate somewhere. Maybe someone had seen him. I pulled out my phone and checked Kara's picture again. The houses in the background. I needed to find that street. I had one shot. And I wasn't leaving without answers. I didn't waste any time. I dropped my bag in the hotel room and headed straight back out. I had to find Nate. The first stop? The diner. Small towns like this always had one. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone. If Nate had been here for even a few days, someone had to have seen him. The diner. The bell over the door jingled as I stepped inside. The place was small, cozy. Booths lined up against the windows, an old jukebox in the corner, a few locals scattered around. A waitress, mid-50s, apron tied tight around her waist, looked up from behind the counter. She gave me the kind of polite but suspicious look people in small towns give to strangers. Evening, hon, what can I get you? I forced a smile. Just a coffee. And, I hesitated. How do I even ask this? I'm looking for someone. Tall guy, dark hair, glasses. He might have been in here recently. She narrowed her eyes slightly. We get a lot of tall guys with dark hair, sweetie. I swallowed. His name's Nate. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. She knew who I was talking about. I gripped the counter. Please. I just need to know if he's still in town. The waitress sighed and grabbed a coffee mug, pouring the steaming liquid before sliding it toward me. Look, huh? I don't know what's going on, but if he didn't tell you where he was, maybe you should respect that. Respect that? My stomach twisted. She definitely knew. I leaned in, lowering my voice. I know I messed up. I know he's mad. But I love him and I need to talk to him. Please. For a second I thought she might give in. Her face softened just a little. But then she sighed again, shaking her head. I'm sorry, sugar. But I can't help you. My heart sank. I was running out of options. I paid for the coffee, barely even touched it, and walked out, my pulse racing. Finding the house. If no one was going to tell me, I'd just have to figure it out myself. I pulled out my phone, opened Kara's Facebook post again, and zoomed in on the background. The houses were older wooden porches, big trees lining the street. This wasn't some random road. It had to be close. I got in my car and started driving. Slowly. Street after street, I scanned the houses, looking for anything familiar. I was about to give up when there, a long row of trees, a wooden fence, the same rooftops from the picture. This was it. I parked a few houses down, my heart slamming against my ribs. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The moment of truth. I walked up the driveway, each step heavier than the last. The house was quiet, the porch light dimly flickering. Was he inside? I raised my hand to knock. Then the door opened, and there he was. Nate. For a second, neither of us moved. His eyes locked onto mine, and I saw it, the shock, the hurt, the anger. Then, just as quickly, his face hardened. Like I was nothing. I opened my mouth, but before I could say a word, he shut the door, right in my face. I just stood there. My heart was racing, my breath caught in my throat. I knew he was mad, I expected that. But I didn't think he'd actually slam the door in my face. I swallowed hard, staring at the chipped paint on the door. This couldn't be it. I took a deep breath and knocked. Once. Twice. Nothing. Nate, I called, my voice shaking. Please. Just talk to me. Silence. I pressed my palm against the wood, leaning forward slightly. I know you hate me right now. I know you don't want to see me. But my voice cracked. I just need to explain. More silence. I clenched my fists. No. No, he wasn't just going to ignore me. I knocked again, harder this time. Nate. Come on, I drove 5 hours for this. You can't just. The door yanked open, so fast I nearly stumbled. Nate stood there, staring at me. His face was blank, but his eyes, they were filled with something I hadn't seen before. Pure, cold resentment. I can't just what, Serena? His voice was calm. Too calm. I can't just shut the door in your face? I can't just move on? I can't just pretend you don't exist. I flinched. He let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Funny. That's exactly what you did to me? I swallowed, my throat dry. Nate, please. No, his jaw clenched. You don't get to please me. Not anymore. I stepped closer, desperate. I just want to talk. That's all. Just one conversation. And if you never want to see me again, after that, I'll leave. I swear. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. He looked tired. Not just physically, but emotionally drained. Why? He asked quietly. I hesitated. What? Why do you even care, Serena? His voice was rough, bitter. Why do you suddenly need to talk to me so badly? I stared at him. Because I love you. Because I miss you. Because I can't stand the idea of losing you forever. But I couldn't say that. Because, what if he didn't care anymore? I opened my mouth, but before I could answer, Nate shook his head. You know what? It doesn't matter. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something terrifying in them. Finality. It means we have nothing to talk about, he said. You're wasting your time. I took a step forward, but he stepped back. Nate, go home, Serena. And then just like before, he shut the door. But this time I knew. This wasn't just anger. This was him letting me go. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just stood there, staring at the closed door, my heart slamming against my ribs. Go home, Serena. He meant it. He wasn't playing hard to get. He wasn't waiting for me to beg. He wasn't leaving a window open for me to climb back in. He was done. But I couldn't accept that. I knocked again, softer this time. Nate, I whispered. Please. Nothing. I swallowed hard, pressing my forehead against the door. I know you don't want to see me. I know I hurt you. But I swear it wasn't what you think. My voice cracked. It was just a mistake. A stupid, meaningless mistake. But you and me? We're not a mistake. Please, Nate, I don't want to lose you. Silence. I squeezed my eyes shut. This can't be the end. I knocked one last time. If you change your mind, I'm at the Oakwood Inn. My voice was barely above a whisper. Room 206. Still nothing. I waited. And waited. Finally, I stepped back, wrapping my arms around myself as the cold air settled in. I turned around, walking slowly back to my car. This wasn't over. It couldn't be. I just had to give him time. Waiting. Back at the hotel, I couldn't sit still. I paced the room, checking my phone every 2 minutes. No calls. No messages. Nothing. I kept replaying everything in my head. The way he looked at me. The way his voice shook. The way he shut me out like I was nobody. Had I really lost him? Forever? No. No, I refused to believe that. I just had to wait. He needed space. He needed time. I curled up on the bed, staring at the ceiling, willing my phone to light up. Midnight. Still nothing. The town outside was quiet, the occasional sound of a passing car breaking the silence. The air felt thick, heavy with the weight of everything I was trying not to feel. And then, a knock on my door. My breath caught. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. I shot up, running to the door so fast I almost tripped. My fingers fumbled on the handle as I yanked it open. Nate. Standing there. Staring at me. I sucked in a sharp breath. Nate, Before I could finish, he walked inside, brushing past me. I turned, shutting the door slowly, my hands trembling. He stood in the middle of the room, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. You wanted to talk? His voice was flat. Talk? I swallowed hard, my heart pounding as I turned to face him. Nate was here. It should have felt like a win. He came to me. He was giving me a chance. But the way he stood there, stiff, arms crossed, jaw tight, it wasn't the Nate I knew. It wasn't my Nate. I took a shaky breath. Thank you for coming. He didn't respond. Didn't move. Just stood there, staring at me like I was a stranger. I licked my lips, trying to find the right words. This was my chance. I couldn't mess it up. Nate, I don't even know where to start, I said. I need you to know that what happened. You cheated on me. His voice was sharp, cutting straight through my words. I flinched. He took a step closer, his eyes burning into mine. You cheated. And you didn't tell me. You were never going to tell me. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because he was right. I wasn't going to tell him. I thought I'd never have to. His lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. You know what's funny, Serena? I keep asking myself, what would have happened if I never found out? He tilted his head. Would we still be together? Would you still be pretending? No, I said quickly. Nate, it wasn't like that. He let out a breathy laugh, shaking his head. Don't stand there and tell me it wasn't like that. I stepped forward. I made a mistake. A stupid, horrible mistake, and I swear to you it meant nothing. His expression darkened. It meant nothing? I hesitated. So let me get this straight, he said, his voice eerily calm. You slept with my boss, the man I respected, the man I worked for, and it meant nothing? I nodded, desperately. Yes. It wasn't about you, Nate. It was just. His eyes flashed. Oh, so that's supposed to make me feel better? That it wasn't about me? He scoffed. Tell me something, Serena. Was I on your mind when you were in bed with him? I felt my stomach turn. Nate, please. He took another step forward, his voice dropping. Did you think about me at all? Tears stung my eyes. I don't know. He barked out a bitter laugh. You don't know. I wiped at my face, my hands shaking. I was drunk, I wasn't thinking. I swear, Nate, I would take it back if I could. He stared at me for a long moment. And then he said the words that shattered me completely. I wish you could too. Silence. He ran a hand through his hair, letting out a slow breath. But you can't, Serena. And that's the problem. I shook my head quickly. No, Nate. The problem is that you never even gave me a chance to fix this. His jaw clenched. Fix this? Yes. I stepped closer. You just disappeared, Nate. You didn't talk to me, you didn't let me explain, you just vanished. Like what we had meant nothing. His eyes flashed with something sharp. Like what we had meant nothing? I hesitated. Nate let out a slow, humorless laugh, shaking his head. You know what's crazy, Serena? That's exactly how I felt when I found out. I sucked in a breath. You say I didn't give you a chance? He said, voice low. You didn't give me one either. You made the choice for me. You chose to lie, to pretend. You threw away everything we had. I felt a sob rising in my throat. Nate, please. I love you. He exhaled, his expression softening for just a second. And for that brief moment, I thought I saw something there. Hope, pain, conflict. But then, just as quickly, it was gone. He shook his head slowly. No, Serena. You don't. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I do. He turned toward the door. Panic surged through me. Wait. Nate. His hand was on the doorknob. He paused. And then, without looking back, he said the words that broke me completely. I don't love you anymore. And then, he walked out. The door shut. I stood there frozen, the words still ringing in my ears. I don't love you anymore. No. No, that wasn't real. He didn't mean it. He couldn't mean it. My whole body was shaking. I ran to the door, yanked it open, and rushed outside. Nate. My voice cracked as I called after him. He was already at his car, gripping the door handle, like he couldn't get away fast enough. Like being near me was unbearable. I took a shaky step forward. Please don't do this. He sighed, turning slightly. His face was unreadable. Serena, what more do you want? I swallowed hard. I need you to see that what we had is worth saving. We can fix this. Something in his expression flickered, but it was gone in an instant. He let out a slow breath. We can't? Yes, we can, I insisted, stepping closer. We love each other, Nate. No, his voice was firm. Final. We don't. I flinched. You don't mean that? He shook his head, his fingers tightening around his car keys. You think love is enough to erase what you did? Because it's not. His words cut straight through me. Serena, I trusted you, he said quietly. I saw my future with you. I thought you were my person. He swallowed hard. And now? I can't even stand to look at you without remembering how easily you threw it all away. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Nate, I was drunk. Don't. His voice was sharp. Being drunk didn't make you forget you were in a relationship. It didn't make you forget who I was. You knew what you were doing. I bit my lip, barely able to breathe. I spent weeks trying to figure out if I could ever look at you the same way again, he continued. And the answer is no. I can't. I shook my head quickly. No. No, Nate, we can work through this. We can. His hands clenched into fists. You don't get it, do you? I swallowed. I don't want to fix this. The words hit harder than anything else. I stared at him, my heart caving in on itself. You don't mean that? I do. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Serena, I didn't just leave because I was angry. I left because I knew that even if I forgave you, I'd never be able to trust you again. His voice softened slightly. I don't want to spend my life with someone I have to second-guess. Someone I have to wonder about every time I'm not around. My chest ached. But I deserve better than that. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Because he was right. He did deserve better. And for the first time since this all started, I realized maybe I wasn't going to get him back. Maybe this was really the end. I wiped at my face, my hands trembling. So that's it. My voice came out small. You're just walking away? Nate sighed. I already walked away, Serena. He turned, opening his car door. I took one last, desperate step forward. I love you, I whispered. He paused for a second. Then, without looking at me, he got into his car, shut the door, and drove away. I stood there, watching the taillights disappear. And then, I broke. I sank to the curb, sobs racking my body, my breath coming out in short, choked gasps. Because for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I finally understood. I had lost Nate forever. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe minutes. Maybe hours. The world felt distant, like I wasn't even in my body anymore. Just a hollow shell, sitting on the curb, staring at the empty road where Nate had disappeared. He was gone. Really, truly gone. No more second chances. No more hope. No more Nate and Serena. I wiped my face, but the tears kept coming. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. I thought I'd come here, explain everything, and we'd find a way back to each other. I thought he'd listen. I thought love would be enough. But it wasn't. It never was. Because no matter how much I begged, how much I cried, how much I wanted him back, I was the one who ruined everything. I made the choice. I was the one who let it happen. And Nate was the one who had to live with it. And now, I had to live with it too. The aftermath. I don't even remember driving back to the hotel. My body moved on autopilot, my mind numb. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't planning my next move. I wasn't coming up with excuses. I wasn't telling myself that if I just said the right thing, I could fix it. Because there was nothing left to fix. Nate had made his choice. And for the first time, I had to respect it. Going home, the next morning, I packed my bag and checked out of the hotel. No more waiting. No more hoping. It was over. The drive back felt endless. Every mile I put between me and that tiny town felt like a mile further from the life I used to have. By the time I reached my apartment, everything felt wrong. Nate's side of the closet was still empty. His coffee mug was still gone. But this time, instead of feeling panicked, I just felt tired. I crawled into bed, pulling the blankets over me, staring at the ceiling. I had lost him. And no matter how much I wished I could go back and undo it, some mistakes can't be undone. Some people don't come back. Some love stories don't get a happy ending. And this was the price I had to pay.